plants. For centuries, they were described as mute creatures. But the last 20 years have seen a revolution in science. It has been discovered that plants can sense their environment, react, and even learn without a nervous system. What does this mean? Is consciousness limited to the brain? The study of plant neurobiology, pioneered by Professor Stefano Mancuso, seeks bold answers to these questions. Mimosa pudica, that delicate plant that closes its leaves when you touch it. Scientists have observed that this plant learns not to respond to repeated stimuli. Memory, you say? Yes, they do. Plants can recognize dangers, food sources, and other living things in their environment. They can exchange signals with their roots. They form symbiotic relationships with microbial organisms in the soil. In light of this, we have to ask, if consciousness is about the capacity to react to information, then can plants be conscious? Or are we still mischaracterizing consciousness? For thousands of years, some plants have been seen not only as sources of healing, but as sentient beings. Ayahuasca in the Amazon jungle, peyote among North American Indians, iboga deep in Africa. These plants are not just drunk. They are talked to, guided through dreams. But what does this mean? Are these plants really conscious, or are they a reflection of our brain? For the Shipibo-Konibo tribe, in the Amazon, ayahuasca is a teacher. When preparing the herbal mixture, the proportion of herbs to be used is learned through dreams. How is this information transmitted? Is it a chemical interaction or a deep intuition? In indigenous communities that use the peyote cactus, the spirit of the plant is believed to direct the ceremony. Not only hallucinogenic effects, but a mental journey begins with rhythmic drumming, prayers, and environmental symbols. In the Bwiti culture in Africa, iboga provides a powerful awareness that causes one to review one's life. Neuroscientifically, these plants suppress the brain's default mode network, DMN. The ego collapses. Consciousness expands. The question now is, are these experiences an illusion or a biological key to access some kind of different level of consciousness? There is a claim often heard in spiritual traditions. Plants can communicate telepathically. But is this just a metaphor? Or is there really a consciousness, an awareness in nature? Some sadhus and shamans in India claim that they can communicate with certain plants and the plants tell them when to gather. The same tradition says that if you don't respect the spirit of the plants, they won't work. And what does modern science say about this? In 1973, a polygraphist named Cleve Baxter attached a polygraph to the leaf of a plant he kept at home. He claimed that the plant responded to thought. In fact, the plant produced electrical activity when its owner thought of harming it. This experiment was criticized in the scientific community, but it attracted attention. Over the last 20 years, it has been proven that plants respond to environmental signals and even communicate through chemical messaging. But is this telepathy or a simple survival mechanism? In a study published in 2019, corn roots were observed to orient themselves according to gravity and emit chemical signals when they perceive a threat. The plant reads its environment. But can it think? According to some scientists, plants can make localized decisions even without a central nervous system. Plant neuroscience is a new field investigating this. Now let's ask again, is the claim of telepathic communication an intuitive connection in harmony with nature? Or is it a complex but unconscious mechanism that can be explained scientifically? Many cultures suggest that plants have memory. But the truth is, plants are not equipped with brains and nervous systems like humans. So how is it that some plants develop learning processes in response to environmental changes? A study published in 2014 showed that the plant Mimosa pudica does not forget an object that repeatedly harms it. After a harmful contact, the plant recognized it and did not react to it, just like a human being reacts to pain. This kind of behavior of plants makes us reconsider the concepts of memory and learning. How can plants retain memories without a brain? Many studies show that plants can store environmental signals in their memory and remember them for long periods of time. For example, plants can change their development in response to past environmental conditions. This memory takes place at the molecular level. At the heart of this phenomenon is the chemical messaging of plants. Many plants produce chemicals that can strengthen their defenses against environmental threats. Epigenetic changes in plants occur as they interact with the environment. But how do such changes happen? According to evolutionary biology, such learning and memory processes are strategies that improve plants' chances of survival. But does this mean that plants actually experience learning? New research is delving deeper into plant memory and showing how sensitive plants are to environmental signals. This new understanding reveals that plants are much more complex creatures. Throughout history, many ancient civilizations have seen consciousness-altering plants not just as intoxicants, but as keys that open spiritual doors. Mayan priests, Amazonian shamans, and Indian sadhus. They all use these herbal tools of consciousness for mental exploration and communication with the gods. But today, there is not only spiritual but also scientific research on these plants. So what do these plants do in our brains? How is it that a few drops of liquid or a pinch of leaves can transport our minds into an infinite ocean of consciousness? One of the most well-known psychedelics is ayahuasca. The substance DMT, dimethyltryptamine, temporarily shuts down the so-called default mode network of the brain, dissolving the sense of self. This can lead to mystical experiences, confrontations with past traumas, and a deep sense of universal connectedness. According to a Harvard University study, controlled ayahuasca sessions can have positive effects on post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, depression, and addiction. Likewise, therapies with the substance psilocybin, found in magic mushrooms, are much more effective than conventional antidepressants. These substances affect the brain's serotonin 5-HT2A receptors, creating an overconnected brain state. This can boost creativity, provide insight, and lead to self-transcendence. Ancient cultures already knew this, but for them, it was not only a cure, but also a means of spiritual metamorphosis, integration with the plant, seeing the plant as an entity of consciousness. Science today looks at these plants in a new way. It sees them not as criminals, but as potential neurospiritual tools. The question is this connection we have with conscious plants just a biological interaction, or is there really a mutual communication? An Amazonian shaman says that when he prepares an ayahuasca concoction, he invokes not only the plants, but also their spirits. The plant recognizes you, he says. You don't choose it, it chooses you? But is this just a metaphor, or is there a deeper reality? Central to the rituals is the view of the plant as a teacher. Ancient peoples claim that plants carry knowledge, communicate with people, and even offer personalized visions. The Cofan shamans in Colombia, for example, call ayahuasca yage. According to them, this liquid can reveal one's past lives, fears, even spiritual deaths in the family lineage. This is not just a psychoactive experience, but a teaching of consciousness. Although modern science describes it as active imagination or subconscious representation, such experiences show a surprising psychological consistency in many users. So it doesn't seem to be a coincidence. Stanislav Grof's transpersonal psychology studies reveal that these herbal experiences are related to birth trauma, repressed memories, and collective consciousness. According to Grof, The plant activates not only the brain, but also an out-of-time mind field. People don't just hallucinate in these rituals. They often encounter guiding figures. An old woman, a snake, a jaguar, or a sacred tree. And it's interesting. These figures are common to many people, regardless of culture. This coincides with Carl Jung's theory of the archetype. That is, plants seem to connect not only with the individual consciousness, but also with the collective consciousness. So what does this mean? Perhaps plant intelligence is a much broader form of what we define as mind. And perhaps some plants carry not only healing, but also knowledge. In sacred rituals, people talk to the plant, compromise with it, even take permission from it. Is it just faith, or is it a recollection of a forgotten biological language of communication? For centuries, people have seen plants not just as sources of food or healing, but as beings that carry wisdom, teach, and even feel. Modern science has long distanced itself from this idea. But now, questions are beginning to change. Plants don't see, hear, or speak, but do they process information in their own form? In Michael Pollan's words, plants may represent another form of intelligence. Indeed, the navigational ability of roots, the signaling of leaves, the social responses of plants are no longer considered mere reactions, but a kind of cognitive process. In 2013, the journal Plant Signaling and Behavior revealed that some plants can carry information via electrical signals. These signals work in a similar way to action potentials in the animal nervous system. Plants can also warn their neighbors of danger in the environment. When a caterpillar gnaws on a leaf, some tree species release warning odors into the air. Other trees pick up the signal and start producing defense chemicals. According to Italian plant scientist Stefano Mancuso, the intelligence of plants may be a decentralized but diffuse and modular form of consciousness. That is, it has no brain, but decision-making is distributed throughout the root system. This leads us to a radical question. Does consciousness belong only to humans, or is consciousness a broader form of organization of nature? Memory, learning, even cooperative behaviors are beginning to be observed in plants. Some bean plants can repeat the orientations they have learned in certain environments. Isn't this a form of learning? If consciousness is about receiving, interpreting, and reacting to signals, so plants have all three properties. Which brings us back to the claims of ancient cultures. They realized that plants had consciousness thousands of years ago. Perhaps they were just speaking a different language of science. And now, modern science is beginning, albeit belatedly, to decipher that language. Man thought he was the only form of consciousness in the universe. But perhaps it is just beginning to understand an intelligence that has developed quietly around it for millions of years. Carrying knowledge at its roots. Plants don't just grow. Some teach, some watch you, and some wait for you.